I never thought I'd be standing on the cobblestone path outside my own home at 65 years old, clutching two suitcases, my heart breaking as my daughter Lydia slammed the door of the house I'd poured my life into. The lake breeze of Cedar Hollow stung my tear-streaked face as I stood there, the weight of betrayal heavier than the bags in my hands. Just hours ago, I discovered a letter from the Cedar Hollow lottery board tucked in my coat pocket, a winning ticket worth $15.2 million, dollars, a birthday whim I'd forgotten about until now. After taxes, it would be $10 million, dollars, a fortune that could erase every sleepless night I'd spent worrying about bills since Lydia and her husband Derek moved in, claiming they needed a fresh start after his investment firm collapsed. I'd planned to surprise them with the news over dinner, dreaming of the joy we'd share, maybe even funding the recording studio Lydia always wanted. But before I could speak, they sat me down, their voices cold and rehearsed, telling me I wasn't welcome anymore, that I should move to Willow Pines retirement home so they could modernize the house for their future. My home, where I'd raised Lydia, where every room echoed with the melodies I'd composed on my late husband's piano, was being stripped away by my own flesh and blood. I clutched the letter tighter, a secret I wasn't ready to share. Not yet. Before we dive deeper, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story resonates, hit that subscribe button. We've got something truly special for you tomorrow. The morning had started with the familiar stillness of Cedar Hollow, the lake's mist weaving through the cedar trees that framed my century-old cottage in the artist's quarter. I'd lived here for 38 years, filling its creaky wooden floors and stained glass windows with the music that had once been my passion. As Eleanor Whitmore, I'd been a composer whose lullabies were sung in nurseries across the country, but I'd set my career aside after my husband Thomas passed away when Lydia was just 5. I'd poured every note of my grief into raising her, teaching her to play the piano, sacrificing gigs and contracts to be the mother she needed. The grand piano in the living room, Thomas's last gift to me, still held the echoes of our happiest moments. Lydia's tiny fingers fumbling through her first scales, my voice humming a melody as Thomas smiled from the doorway. That piano was my sanctuary, a reminder of the life I'd built, the love I'd lost, and the dreams I'd buried for my daughter's sake. The letter from the Cedar Hollow lottery board had arrived with the morning mail, its crisp envelope a stark contrast to the worn bills I'd been dreading. I'd bought the ticket on my 65th birthday, a small act of defiance against the monotony of my pensioner's life as a retired music teacher at the Cedar Hollow Arts Guild. When I opened it, the words "winner $15.2 million" dollars stopped my breath. After taxes, it would be $10 million, dollars, enough to fix the leaking roof, pay off the property taxes that had been climbing each year, and maybe even record the symphony I'd been writing in secret for decades. My hands shook as I read the instructions to claim the prize at the Pinnacle Center in Eastview. I slipped the letter into my coat pocket, a secret warmth against the chill of the morning, imagining the look on Lydia's face when I told her. We could finally be a family again, free from the financial strain that had strained our bond since she and Derek moved in 6 months ago. They'd arrived with promises of a temporary stay, claiming Derek's investment firm had collapsed under unforeseen market shifts. I'd welcomed them with open arms, rearranging my life to make space for them. I gave up my composing room for Derek's home office, moved my piano lessons to the cramped garage, and watched as Lydia redecorated my kitchen with sleek appliances I didn't know how to use. But the longer they stayed, the more I felt like a guest in my own home. Lydia's late-night calls with clients, her role as marketing director at Crestwood Media, demanding a polished image, clashed with my quiet routines. Derek's forced smiles and dismissive comments about my old-fashioned music grated on me. I'd noticed the signs for months, the way they whispered when I entered a room, the brochures for Willow Pines retirement home left on the dining table. But I told myself I was overthinking, that they wouldn't betray me. I'd been wrong. I was pulling on my coat to head to the Pinnacle Center when Lydia intercepted me at the door, her auburn hair tied back in a messy bun, her face tight with tension. "Mom, we need to talk," she said, her voice clipped. Derek emerged from the kitchen, a coffee mug in hand, his tailored shirt rumpled as if he'd slept in it. "Eleanor," he began, using my first name in that condescending way I'd grown to hate, "you've been so generous letting us stay while we get back on our feet." Something in his tone made my stomach twist. I clutched my purse closer, feeling the letter inside. "This is my home, Derek," I said softly. "You're always welcome here." Lydia sat at the dining table, motioning for me to join them. "That's just it, Mom," she said, her voice taking on the persuasive tone she used for her marketing pitches. "Derek and I have been talking, and we think it's time for a change. We want to raise our family here, but this place needs a complete overhaul, a modern touch. 3 generations under one roof is just too complicated." I stared at her, the words not fully sinking in. "What exactly are you saying?" I asked, my voice trembling. Derek cleared his throat, his smile never reaching his eyes. "We think you'd be happier at Willow Pines. They have excellent facilities, and we've already spoken with them." My heart sank. "You want me to move to a retirement home? I'm only 65. I'm not infirm." "Mother," Lydia sighed, her formal tone cutting deeper than any insult. "Be reasonable. This house is too big for you to manage alone. The stairs are getting harder for you." I shook my head, my voice rising. "I've never complained about the stairs." She pressed on, ignoring me. "And the property taxes are astronomical. We can manage everything if you let us take over." The letter in my pocket felt like a burning coal, a secret I could reveal to end this conversation. But something stopped me. A cold realization settled in. They'd been planning this for months, long before I'd won the lottery. They didn't want me here, not because of my health, but because I was in their way. I stood up, my hands trembling with a mix of anger and heartbreak. "The house is in my name," I said quietly. "I paid for it with the royalties from my lullabies, the ones that played on every radio station in the 80s. Derek leaned forward, his mask of warmth slipping. "And you've held that over Lydia's head for years, haven't you? Don't you think it's time to stop playing the martyr?" My breath caught, the accusation slicing through me. "I've never—" I began, but Lydia cut me off, her voice sharp. "Every birthday, every Christmas, it's always about how you gave up your career for me, as if I asked to be born." The injustice of her words hit me like a tidal wave. I'd only spoken of my music with love, with nostalgia for the life I'd once had. Not resentment, but in their eyes I was a burden, a relic to be discarded. "I'm going out," I said, needing air, needing space to think. "We can discuss this later." Derek exchanged a glance with Lydia, his voice cold. "Actually, we've already arranged everything. The movers will be here tomorrow." I froze, disbelief washing over me. "Tomorrow? You expect me to pack up my life in a day?" Lydia's tone was maddeningly calm. "We've hired people to help, and Willow Pines has an opening in their assisted living wing. They can only hold it until tomorrow afternoon." Assisted living. The words echoed in my mind, each one a betrayal deeper than the last. "I don't need assistance," I snapped. "Mom," Lydia said, her voice softening with false concern, "you've been forgetting things. The stove was left on twice last month. You misplaced your medication." I shook my head, my voice breaking. "I've been distracted because you've taken over my space. Derek uses my composing room, and you've rearranged my kitchen so I can't find anything." The doorbell rang, cutting through the tension. Lydia answered it, returning with her best friend, Celeste Varnum, a board member at Crestwood Media. "Celeste, perfect timing," Lydia said, her demeanor brightening artificially. I was just showing Mom the brochures for Willow Pines. Celeste gave me a pitying look that made my skin crawl. Eleanor, how are you holding up? Lydia told me about the tough decision you're facing. My eyes darted to my daughter, a chilling realization dawning. What exactly did Lydia tell you? I asked. That you've been struggling with the house, Celeste said gently, as if speaking to a child. That you've admitted it's too much. It's so brave of you to recognize when it's time for a change. The truth hit me like a slap. They'd been telling people I wanted to leave, crafting a narrative to make it seem like my idea, my failure. I never said that, I began, but Derek cut me off smoothly. We're still working out the details, Celeste, but we all agree change is necessary. I looked at the three of them, my daughter, her husband, her friend, discussing my future as if I weren't there, as if my voice didn't matter. The letter in my pocket felt heavier, no longer a joyful secret, but a test of loyalty I hadn't known I was taking. In that moment, I made a decision. I need some air, I said, grabbing my coat. Mom, we're in the middle of something important, Lydia protested, irritation flashing in her eyes. And I need to think, I replied, heading for the door, unless you plan to stop me. The flicker of embarrassment on her face in front of Celeste gave me my escape. I slipped out, hurrying toward the lakefront, my mind racing with every step. By the time I reached the old pier, I knew what I had to do. I called a taxi and headed straight to the Pinnacle Center in Eastview. 3 hours later, I sat across from Nora Hensley, the lottery claims officer, signing the paperwork that would transfer $10 million into a new trust in my name. Nora was kind, arranging for a financial advisor to meet me immediately after. Congratulations, Ms. Whitmore, she said, handing me a temporary debit card linked to an initial $250,000 transfer. The full amount will be available in 48 hours. Is there anything else we can help you with? I hesitated, then asked, can this win be kept private? I don't want a public announcement. Nora nodded. In Cedar Hollow, winners have the right to remain anonymous. Your name won't be released unless you choose to go public. Relief washed over me, a small shield against the storm I knew was coming. On my way out, I caught my reflection in the Pinnacle Center's glass doors. Same silver-streaked chestnut hair, same sensible cardigan, same face etched with years of laughter and loss. But something had shifted inside me, a spark of defiance I hadn't felt since Thomas died. I didn't go straight home. Instead, I found myself at the office of Margaret Henshaw, a respected attorney in Cedar Hollow. I hadn't planned this visit, but instinct told me I needed protection. Margaret listened as I explained my situation, her sharp blue eyes narrowing with every detail. Let me get this straight, she said when I finished. The house is in your name, purchased with your earnings. Your daughter and son-in-law moved in 6 months ago, claiming temporary hardship, and now they're trying to force you into assisted living so they can take over the property? I nodded, my throat tight. And they've told friends it's my idea, that I'm struggling. Margaret's expression hardened. And today you discovered you've won a significant lottery prize, which you haven't disclosed to them? That's right, I confirmed. She tapped her pen thoughtfully. Ms. Whitmore, I don't usually advise withholding financial information from family, but in this case, I believe you should secure your position before telling them anything. Their behavior suggests they might try to control your assets. By the time I left Margaret's office, I had a plan and the beginnings of legal protection for my newfound wealth. I felt lighter than I had in months, but the heaviness of what awaited me at home lingered. When I returned, it was past dusk. I found Lydia and Derek in the living room with 3 strangers, measuring furniture and taking notes. Who are these people? I asked from the doorway. Lydia turned, her expression a mix of irritation and forced patience. The design team from Lakeside Interiors. We're getting estimates for the renovation. My stomach dropped. In my house? Without consulting me? Derek stepped forward, his tone patronizing. Eleanor, we discussed this. The decision has been made. Not by me, I said quietly, my voice trembling with suppressed rage. Not by me, I repeated, my voice steadier now, though my heart pounded against my rib cage. Lydia rolled her eyes, her patience wearing thin. Mom, we've already started the process. The deposit for Willow Pines is paid, and the movers are coming tomorrow. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. I looked around the room, at the strangers evaluating my possessions, at the piano in the corner, where I'd taught Lydia her first notes, at the life I'd built now being dismantled without my consent. A fire ignited in my chest, a fury I hadn't felt in years. Get out, I said, my voice low but firm. The designers exchanged uneasy glances, one of them murmuring about coming back another time. Mom, Lydia hissed, her face flushing with embarrassment. Stop making a scene. I'm not talking to your designers, I clarified, my eyes locking onto hers. I'm talking to you and Derek. Get out of my house. Derek laughed, but it was strained, his confidence faltering. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious, I replied. This is my home. My name is on the deed. I paid for it with the royalties from my music, maintained it through decades of grief and hard work, and filled it with love. I'm not leaving. Lydia's expression hardened, her voice dripping with venom. Fine. If that's how you want to play this, don't come crying to us when you can't afford the property taxes or when the furnace breaks down again. Don't expect us to bail you out when your pension runs dry. I met her gaze unflinching. I'll manage, I said simply. Will you? Derek sneered, his composure cracking. On your little music teacher's pension. Don't be delusional, Eleanor. You need us more than we need you. I almost told them then, almost pulled the letter from my pocket and watched their faces change as they realized their mistake. But something held me back. If money was the only thing that would change their treatment of me, then nothing had really changed at all. I think we're done here, I said instead, turning toward the stairs. Lydia's voice followed me, sharp and calculating. The house isn't just yours, you know. Dad left his share to me in his will. It was a lie. Thomas had left everything to me, trusting me to care for Lydia, which I had done tirelessly. But I could see she believed her own fabrication. Check the deed, Lydia, I replied calmly. It's in my name alone. Always has been. We'll see about that, she threatened. If you force us out, we'll fight you legally. We've established residency. We have rights. Then I suggest you speak with an attorney, I said, moving aside from the doorway. Now please leave. They stood frozen for a moment, clearly not expecting this resistance. Then Derek grabbed Lydia's arm, his pride taking over in front of the designers. This isn't over, he muttered as they walked out. After the designers left with hurried apologies, I sat in the stillness of my living room, the silence deafening without the hum of my piano. I knew they wouldn't give up easily. I pulled out my phone and called Margaret Henshaw, my attorney, updating her on the confrontation. They threatened legal action, I told her, my voice steady despite the ache in my chest. They're claiming Lydia has rights to the property through her father. Margaret's response was immediate. She doesn't. I've pulled the property records. The house is solely in your name, and your husband's will left everything to you. They have no legal claim beyond tenancy rights, which we can address with an eviction notice. What should I do tonight? I asked. They're still here. Document everything, Margaret advised. If they become threatening, call the police. I'll prepare the eviction notice tomorrow. That night I barely slept, listening for any movement in the hallway, half expecting them to try something while I slept. Morning came without incident, but the tension in the house was suffocating. I came downstairs to find Lydia in the kitchen, staring at her laptop, ignoring me as I made coffee. Then I noticed the empty spot on the wall where my framed sheet music, the first lullaby I'd ever published, had hung for decades. Where's my sheet music? I asked, my voice trembling. Lydia didn't look up. We packed it. Packed it? I echoed, my heart sinking. Since you're being unreasonable about moving, we decided to start the process anyway. A cold dread settled in my stomach. That sheet music is an original, Lydia. It's worth thousands. Where is it? She shrugged, her tone dismissive. In storage. Don't worry, it's fine. The casual way she spoke about my life's work, as if it were nothing more than clutter, broke something inside me. I want it back now, I said, my voice shaking with fury. She finally looked at me, her eyes cold. It's not here anymore. Derek took it to a storage unit this morning. Without my permission, I demanded. That sheet music is my intellectual property. Taking it is theft. She laughed, a sharp, unkind sound. Are you going to call the police on your own daughter? That would look great for both of us at Crestwood. I picked up my phone and dialed, ignoring her taunts. Cedar Hollow Police Department, non-emergency line, came the response. Lydia's eyes widened, and she stood so quickly her chair scraped against the floor. You wouldn't dare! I spoke into the phone, my voice steady. Yes, I'd like to report stolen property. My name is Eleanor Whitmore. My daughter and son-in-law have removed valuable artwork from my home without permission and are refusing to tell me where they've taken it. As I gave my statement, Lydia stepped into the hallway, her voice low and urgent on her own phone. 10 minutes later, Derek burst through the door, his face flushed with anger. What the hell do you think you're doing? He demanded. Protecting my property, I replied evenly. The police will be here soon to take a statement. For God's sake, it's just some old sheet music, he exploded. We were keeping it safe. By removing it from my house without permission to a location you refuse to disclose? I shot back. Lydia stepped between us, her voice tight. Fine. It's at Cedar Storage on Lakeview Drive, Unit 142. Happy now? Will you call off the police? No, I said simply. This has gone far enough. I want everything documented. The police arrived, their presence a stark reminder of how far things had deteriorated. They took statements, explained that the removal of the sheet music was a civil matter, and recommended resolving it through mediation or court. I nodded, knowing this wasn't about criminal charges. It was about establishing a record, about showing I wouldn't be bullied. After they left, the house fell into a tense silence. I called Margaret again, updating her. You did the right thing, she assured me. I've prepared the eviction notice. It can be served today if you're ready. Yes, I said without hesitation. I'm ready. Given the tension, she added, have you considered temporary accommodation until this is resolved? I hesitated. Leaving felt like defeat, but staying under the same roof with people who'd tried to erase me seemed unbearable. I'll check into a hotel, I said finally, my voice heavy with the weight of the decision. I packed 2 suitcases that afternoon, my hands lingering on the small mementos that held my past. Photographs of Lydia's first piano recital, Thomas's handwritten note tucked into my sheet music, a tiny music box he'd given me on our first anniversary. Each item was a thread in the tapestry of my life, a life I was determined to reclaim. I checked into the Azure Lake Hotel, a luxurious retreat on the edge of Cedar Hollow, its marble lobby and crystal chandeliers a far cry from the cozy chaos of my cottage. The suite I booked had a view of the lake, the water shimmering under the afternoon sun, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a flicker of peace. I sat by the window, watching boats drift across the horizon, and let myself imagine a future where I could compose again, where my music could fill spaces I'd long since abandoned. 2 weeks later, I stood in the offices of the Cedar Hollow Historical Society, signing the final paperwork to purchase a restored lakefront cabin in the Composer's Grove, a secluded area known for its artistic heritage. The cabin, with its wraparound porch and a sunlit music studio overlooking the lake, felt like a dream I hadn't dared to dream. It had cost $3.5 million, dollars, a sum that would have been unthinkable before the lottery, but now it represented a new beginning. The studio was perfect, with acoustics designed for recording and a space for my grand piano, which I'd had moved from the cottage the day after Lydia and Derek were served the eviction notice. Margaret had ensured the process was smooth, and after 30 days they were legally required to leave. They'd moved to a rental in Eastview, their plans for my home crumbling under the weight of their own deceit, but their actions hadn't stopped there. Margaret called me one morning with disturbing news. Lydia had attempted to access my bank accounts, presenting forged documents claiming power of attorney due to my mental incapacity. The bank had flagged the attempt and contacted Margaret immediately. The documents were shoddy, Margaret explained, her voice tight with indignation. The notary seal was invalid, and the medical assessment was signed by a doctor with ties to Crestwood Media. We've initiated a restraining order for attempted financial exploitation. I felt sick, the betrayal cutting deeper than ever. What are they hoping to achieve? I asked, my voice trembling. They're desperate, Margaret replied. The eviction, your public success, they've lost control, and they're grasping at anything to regain it. That evening, Lydia showed up at the hotel, her face pale and drawn as she sat across from me in the private dining room. The bank called Derek about the power of attorney, she said, her voice shaking. They're saying it's fraud, that we could face charges. I nodded, my expression calm despite the storm inside me. That would be accurate. Attempting to control someone's finances through misrepresentation is fraud. Tears welled in her eyes, a rare vulnerability I hadn't seen since she was a child. We were trying to protect you, Mom. You've been making these wild decisions, spending money, buying that cabin, hosting that concert at the Historical Society. I shook my head, my voice steady. My decisions have been sound, Lydia. The only thing they threaten is your access to my money. She wiped her tears, her voice breaking. You have no idea what it's been like for us. Derek's debts are crushing us. Crestwood is threatening my position if we can't keep up appearances. For a moment, I felt a pang of sympathy. Then I remembered the sheet music, the originals Derek had taken and sold on the black market to cover his debts. I might have helped you, I said quietly, if you'd asked with honesty. But you tried to erase me from my own life. Where's my sheet music, Lydia? She looked away, her voice barely audible. Derek sold it. He said he found a buyer who wouldn't ask questions. My heart clenched, the loss of my life's work a physical ache. I want it back, I said, my voice firm. That's my condition for not pursuing fraud charges. Return every piece, undamaged. She stood, her face crumpling. You care more about that music than your own daughter? No, I replied, my voice soft but resolute. I care about integrity, something you and Derek seem to have forgotten. She left without another word, and I sat there, the weight of her words lingering. I didn't know if I'd ever see my sheet music again, but I knew I'd never let anyone diminish me again. A month later, I sat on the porch of my new cabin, the lake stretching out before me, a glass of chamomile tea in my hand. I'd just returned from a concert at the Historical Society, where I'd debuted a new composition, a symphony inspired by the lake's rhythms, a piece I'd been writing in secret for years. The audience had given me a standing ovation, their applause a balm to the wounds Lydia had left. I heard through friends that she and Derek had moved to Chicago, their marriage strained under the weight of their failures. I'd begun working on a new album, my music finding its way back to me, note by note. But a question lingered. Would Lydia ever return, seeking forgiveness, or had I lost her for good? Only time would tell. Eleanor's story teaches us the power of self-respect and the courage to reclaim our voice, even in the face of betrayal. For years, she sacrificed her dreams for her daughter, believing love meant giving endlessly. But Lydia's actions revealed a hard truth. Love without mutual respect is hollow. Eleanor learned that setting boundaries isn't selfish, it's survival. Her journey reminds us that it's never too late to rediscover our passions, to stand tall against those who diminish us, and to build a life that honors our worth. True freedom comes from embracing who we are, unapologetically. If Eleanor's journey of rediscovery and resilience touched your heart, please support us by hitting like and subscribing to our channel for more stories that inspire and uplift. Share this tale with someone who needs its message of courage today and drop a comment below. What did Eleanor's story teach you? Your support means the world to us, and we've got something extra special lined up for you tomorrow. A story of triumph that you won't want to miss. Click to join our community and let's keep exploring the power of human spirit together.